there lived a young boy named Thomas. He was raised in a comfortable home with good parents. He attended the local school and got exceptional grades. He attended church every Sunday, and he flossed and brushed his teeth twice a day. In other words, he was a good boy. Above all, what would strike people about him when they met him were his manners. He was known for holding doors, raising his hand in class before speaking, and most of all, for never stepping out in front of someone as they passed. When walking along in the hallways at school, he would constantly step to the side to let others go by. And as the years went on, and Thomas was in his senior year of high school, he had become a strong and broad-shouldered boy. So, by mistake, he would regularly bump into people as they tried to pass him in the hallway. So, he increased his efforts to stay out of the way, recoiling away any time he feared he might brush against another person. Most people thought he was strange, but he was only trying to be polite, and that is how it happened. One dim, windy evening in autumn, Thomas was walking alone along the sidewalk on his way home from working on an assignment in the school's library. It was not yet dark, but the glow of red sunset was beginning to fade into a blue shadow. A chilly breeze nipped at his face and made him shiver. The grass on either side of the sidewalk glimmered with the remnant of raindrops from an early shower that morning. Up ahead, he noticed the gleam of a bicycle reflector and realized that it was one approaching. It was far enough away, but he didn't want to stand in the way of it, so he stepped off the sidewalk onto the grass. But the rain had made the grass slippery under his sneakers, and his feet slid. The grass was sloped downward, and he slipped down onto the road. A blinding pair of headlights was the last thing he remembered. He awoke in the hospital 2 days later. His left cheekbone had struck the pavement upon impact and had broken, chipping the bone and leaving a dent in his cheek, as well as severe bruising. Also, 2 of his teeth had been knocked out on the left side. His arms were deeply scratched and bruised, and he had a cracked rib. All of this, and an unbearable aching from head to toe, are what he awoke to when he finally came to in the hospital. His father was there beside his bed, but his mother had been unable to stay, devastated by her son's condition. It was nearly 2 weeks before Thomas could leave the hospital. He had suffered a major concussion. When he returned to school after 2 weeks in the hospital, he expected things to go back to normal, even despite his new disfigurement. But things did not go back to normal. Instead of navigating through the hallway, bobbing and weaving to avoid bumping into anyone, people stepped aside for him. He felt them staring at his indented cheek and missing teeth, and examining the scratches running up his arms. For the first time, people were stepping aside for him. They were avoiding him. They were afraid. He stood in the center of the hall and felt the crowd curve around him and rush by, taking only a moment to scan their curious eyes over his injuries. This, he thought, this was far worse than being ignored. He was being watched, studied, like a creature, like a monster. He covered his face with his hands and ran, out of the school, away from their eyes, anywhere where he could think. But along the sidewalk, a group of teenagers, not much older than he was, walked alongside one another in the way. He slowed his pace until he was barely moving forward, and they ignored him as they approached, expecting that he would eventually step aside. But Thomas did not move this time. He stopped in the sidewalk, his eyes blazing toward them through the cracks in his fingers. The teenagers tried to ignore him as they passed by him, all feeling a bit nervous as he stared at them through his hands. All of them but one girl.
with a ponytail whipping from side to side as she spoke, screeching the loudest above her friends in between the clicks of her bubblegum. In her arrogance, as she passed by Thomas on the sidewalk, she moved closer than she had to and elbowed Thomas in the arm, feigning a simple, "Oops." And that was all it took. The last of Thomas's restraint dissipated, and he reeled around, snagging a firm grasp on the girl's swinging ponytail and yanking her back with it. He shoved her off the sidewalk and into the road. The screech of tires and a hideous thump stunned the girl's friends long enough for Thomas to escape. And he prowls the streets, waiting to rid the world of those who refuse to sidestep.